Imagine this. You walk into an investor meeting to pitch your idea. You spend 15 minutes showing your pitch deck, talking about business model, talking about the market size. You feel really good. And the first question they ask you, why are you the right person to solve this problem? And suddenly your mind goes blank because you have spent weeks perfecting your pitch deck, but you never really thought about this question. Here's the thing that most founders don't realize. Investors are not betting on your idea. They're betting on you. A Harvard study found that 95% of VCs say that the founding team is the most important factor in their investment decision. Not the product, not the market, the founding team. So before you spend another minute chasing product market fit, you need to answer a harder question first. Do you have founder market fit? I learned this in a very expensive way. I co-founded a startup back in 2018. We were building automation software for enterprise manufacturing industry. On paper, it made total sense. Big market, real problem, enterprise customers, and a technical solution that I could build. But here's what actually I did not have. I had no idea about the problem that I was actually solving. I didn't come from a manufacturing background. I did not understand how these businesses operated. I didn't know the buyers or their real pain points. That startup failed, and it cost me $125,000 of my personal capital. Looking back, the problem wasn't the idea. The problem was me. I wasn't the right person to build that company. I did not have the founder market fit. So let me break it down what it actually means, and how can you figure out if you are the right person for your startup idea before you make the same mistakes that I did. You have probably heard about product market fit. That's when you build something what people actually want. It's the holy grail of startups. But here's what nobody tells you. Founder market fit is simpler. It just means if you are the right person to solve this problem. It doesn't have to do anything about if you're smart enough or if you have enough experience. It's deeper than that. It's about whether you are the kind of person who will keep going if things get hard. Not because you're stubborn, but because you deeply care about solving that problem. Think about how Airbnb was started. Brian Chesky and Joe Gebbia were two designers living in San Francisco who couldn't make rent. During a design conference, when the hotels were fully booked, they threw air mattresses on their floor and charged strangers $80 a night to stay. They did not start with let's disrupt the hotel industry. They started with we can't afford to live here and there's a conference in town. So they became the customers. They lived the pain, and that's founder market fit. Compare that to what I did. I looked at the problem from the outside and thought that this is a good business opportunity. I was solving a problem that I just heard or read about, not the one that I lived. And when things got hard, like they always do, I did not have deep connection with the problem that kept me going. That's why VCs ask, why you? It's not a trick question. They know that startups are grind. They have seen so many founders quit when things got tough because they were not obsessed with the problem. They were just obsessed with the idea of being a founder. So how do you actually know if you have it? Let me give you 3 signals that separate founders who have real founder market fit versus the one who are just fooling themselves. The first sign is that you'd work on this problem even if no one paid you, and even if everyone tells you it's a bad idea. There's a VC named James Currier who puts it this way: don't start a company unless you can't not do it. That sounds a bit dramatic, but think about it. Startups are brutal. You'll face rejections, failures, and the moments where quitting would seem like a right choice. The only founders who survive these moments are the ones who cannot really imagine doing anything else. And when I was doing my manufacturing startup, if someone would have offered me a comfortable job halfway through, I probably would have taken it. And that should have been my signal. The second sign is that you can explain why all the previous attempts to solve this problem failed. This is called mapping the idea maze. If you really understand the space, you don't just know about what you are building. You know about every competitor, every previous attempts that failed, and all the solutions that did not work. When Stripe launched, Patrick and John Collision could explain why every other payment solution before them sucked. They have lived it as developers. They knew that the point was not just about it's hard to integrate. They could tell you the exact API calls that were broken and the documentation that was missing. If you can't have conversation about your market, if you don't know the graveyard of startups that came before you, that's a red flag. The third sign is that you naturally fit in with your customers. You speak their language, you understand their world. You're not just an outsider trying to learn, you are an insider who already gets it. Sarah Blakely sold fax machines for 7 years, door to door, before starting Spanx. She had zero fashion experience. But she was a woman who wore pantyhose and hated how they felt. She was the customer herself. When she pitched to manufacturers, all run by men who did not understand the product, she changed into Spanx in the Neiman Marcus bathroom during her meeting to show them. She belonged in that conversation because she lived that problem every single day. Ask yourself honestly, would you still work on it if it took 10 years? Can you explain why every previous solution failed? And do you naturally belong in the room with your customers? If you're hesitating on any of those, that's worth paying attention to. Now let's talk about when you ignore founder market fit. This isn't just about struggling. It's about failing spectacularly. In 2020, a company called Quibi launched with $1.75 billion in funding. The founders were Jeffrey Katzenberg, co-founder of DreamWorks, and Meg Whitman, former CEO of eBay, a Silicon Valley legend. Their idea was mobile-only streaming. Short, quick bites of premium content for people on the go. 6 months later, Quibi was dead. $1.75 billion of funding was dead. So what went wrong? They had money, they had connections, and they had experience running massive companies. But they didn't fundamentally understand how young people are consuming content. They rejected a pitch from Mr. Beast, the biggest creator on YouTube, because they didn't understand the new media landscape. They built for commuters during COVID lockdown when no one was actually commuting. They were outsiders building for a market they had never been part of to begin with. There's another example that's even more honest. A startup called Newsst built a news platform. After it failed, the founders wrote something really brutal in their postmortem. They said, and I quote, "We didn't really care about journalism, and we weren't even avid newsreaders. If the first thing we did every day was go to a news site, we should have been building this product. But even when we had Newsst, it wasn't our go-to place." That's the clearest sign of missing founder market fit. You don't even use your own product category. I was just building because I saw a business opportunity, and that's a failing formula. Here's what the data shows. 42% of startups fail because they build something that no one really wants. But I'd argue most of those founders did not lack skill, they lacked the founder market fit. They were building for customers they did not fully understand. So what if you're watching this and thinking, I don't have founder market fit. Does that mean should I give up my idea? Well, not necessarily. Here's what the best founders do when they realize that they don't have it yet. Option 1. Earn before you start. Chris Dixon, a partner at A16Z, wrote something that changed how I think about this. He said, founder market fit can be developed through experience. You can learn about markets by building test projects, working at relevant companies, or doing extensive research. Eric Yuan didn't start Zoom from day one. He spent a decade at WebEx first. He understood the video conferencing market from the inside before going by on his own. If you don't have founder market fit today, maybe you go in that industry and work for a year or two. Maybe you talk to 30 people who live with this problem every day. Maybe you become the customer yourself. Now your next option is find a co-founder who has it. Now here's something surprising. More than half of successful startups have at least one co-founder who does not have founder market fit, but they have another founder who can fill the gap. If you are a technical visionary, but you don't understand the industry, then find someone who does. If you understand the market deeply, but don't know how to build a product, find someone who can. And your third option is prove it with execution. A VC once said, we backed founders with zero industry experience after watching them hit every target for 8 months straight. That data replaced the founder market fit we would have looked for. If you don't have the personal story yet, you can still earn credibility through results. It's harder, it takes longer, but it's possible. The key is being honest with yourself about where you stand and then doing something about it. Now, I also have to be honest about something here. Founder market fit is not a guarantee. You can have the perfect fit and still fail. Execution still matters. Timing still matters. Sometimes the market just isn't ready, or a bigger player crushes you, or you run out of money at the wrong moment. Founder market fit is necessary, but it's not sufficient. It gives you a better chance than the others. It means you'll understand your customers faster, make better decisions, and stay motivated for longer. But it doesn't mean you'll win. Think of it this way. Founder market fit is the entry ticket. It gets you in the game, but you still have to play well. Now let's get back to that investor meeting. You're sitting across the table and they ask, why are you the right person to build this? Well, now you know what they're really asking. They're not asking for your resume. They're asking, do you have the founder market fit? Can you keep working on this even if you had no money? Do you understand the space deeply enough to map out every failed attempt before you? Do you belong in the room with your customers, not as a visitor, but as one of them? If you can answer yes to that question, you're not just pitching the idea. You are showing them that you are the person who has best shot to solve this problem. And if you can't answer yes, that's not a failure. That's useful information. It means that you should either find a problem that you are actually the right person to solve, or you spend some time in the market to find that founder market fit. So before you chase the product market fit, make sure you have the founder market fit. Because the best idea in the world won't save you if you're not the right person to build it. So here's what I want to know from you. Think about that startup idea that you're working on. Do you have the founder market fit? Or are you building for a market that you don't fully understand? Drop a comment and tell me, and I'll share my honest take with you. And if this was useful, hit the subscribe button. I'm posting one of these every week. Real lessons from someone still building and not from the finish line. See you next week.